you know
Yeah.
what the main thing be? It's like I think the main thing about trading is people gotta understand what kind of trader they are. So when I start explaining stuff like in the beginning of my journey, well, I always say this. I say scalpers are traders that, get into the market, but they don't necessarily know the rules that well. So of course they buy is not gonna hold as long because it's like the way that we look at charts now, I wasn't even looking at charts back then like that when I was new. I feel like I'm in the Matrix. Like I feel like I'm within the screen and touching. You seen the episode of Timmy Turner when he got into the internet and he was running through that bitch? That's me.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
That's what I feel like I am now, but it didn't always start that way as a trader. And so it's just like this season is really more me just looking back on everything and like, how I used to be as a new trader. And it's like I gotta understand and they gotta understand as if you don't know the rules, it's gonna be hard to hold anything long term. It's gonna be hard to hold any conviction. But then when somebody made my first million, I became more of an intraday trader, but I've always had like a swing outlook on things. So then it's like people look at me now, and that's why today is special because you actually the first. This is my 12-year anniversary. Last year, this time of year, April, going into April, I walked away. I stopped teaching. I refunded everybody, and I just took the year off. Merrill Lynch had went down with most of my stock investments and shit. I had to transfer some of that to Fidelity and cash that shit out. And then my payment processor went down, Stripe, and Stripe. And so I started funding niggas because I couldn't do nothing about it. And it's like, whether you in business, in market, or in life, though, that's an example of a low point, right? In something. So it's just like, if your life is an uptrend, I'm assuming anybody that's not a crackhead, their life is an uptrend. So we gonna
Yeah.
expect better every single time. So it's like my low at that point last April was that low, and then where I am this April 2026 is at a higher low because it's like I started another side of business. It's the same thing, but it's always explaining it as my $100 million mindset because everything that makes sense to me now, I wouldn't have ever thought it back then, and that's where it's special because it's like I've always known what kind of trader I was throughout the process. There's just some times where I didn't know when to implement that kind of execution, if that makes sense. So it's like throughout the journey, most of my trading journey, I was more of an intraday trader with a swing outlook because I always had to look at the bigger standpoint because I am an investor also, and investing and trading, they got to understand it's the same thing, but there's a different technique in everything. So it's like the investor mindset that I have, I started in the stock market, then I got into regular trading, but it's like as I trade, my approach is the same as investing, which is buy assets at a low point because assets are forever. They're really what's holding this entire world together because when I need a loan on something, I'm going to use my assets as collateral, go to the bank. If I can't pay the bank back, then they take my assets. But as long as I got assets, I can have somebody's cash and I can have those assets and I pay them back monthly a little fee, but it's like I'm winning because I got my chunk change. I can flip it in money in the market and I can still take out loans. So people got to understand, like just like people in relationships got to understand who they are as a person in order for that relationship to thrive, in order to thrive as a person. It's the same thing in this market. If they don't understand what kind of trader they are, they don't know what to look for. So anybody that's watching me and then my trades, it's like they gotta think about. I always say I can hold trades for weeks at a time. Most people are looking at the smaller time frames, the 5 minute, 15 minute, 1 hour chart, and most people can't hold more than 1 hour. So then when I saying I'm holding something for 3 weeks, they gotta think my emotions are also holding it for 3 weeks. It don't matter how many times this bitch slammed down, we're gonna add an entry because I know what the true trend is, right? Because I'm a swing trader. But I'm only more of a swing trader now because I've been right for since 2019 and we going into 2026. So it's like I understand who I am as a person, but it's just like the way I think about it is people like trading is one thing. Losses happen in trading, but losses also happen in life. So then when people get into the market, if I am someone that understands the market as a whole, it's just a mix of human emotions, fear and greed, buy and sell, up or down, right? Scary or courageous. It's still a positive and a negative. Still one and two, one or two, one or two. But in the mix of one or two, there's higher time frames and then there's lower time frames. But in order for me to maintain my thought process is the higher time frames because that's stock investment. That's long-term investment. My kid is 8, so it's easy for me to think about her at 21 because she's only 8 and I used to be 21. Then she gonna live forever and I'm gonna live forever because I'm gonna make sure it happens. You know what I'm talking about? And during
Yeah.
that time, if I don't buy assets, the only reason my life changed is when I started buying assets because At 19, 20, I had a high paying job at Papa Do's Seafood Kitchen, right? And I made $100,000 a year, but I wasn't buying assets. I was buying wheat, I was buying all kinds of drugs and alcohol and food. I was eating it all away. So by the time I lost my job, I didn't have nothing to my name. And after that experience of after that low point in my life, let's say that's the higher low, but I would say that's the lowest point in my life outside of growing up, because it's like your history as a trader and your history as a person is what makes you you, right? So it's like if my Achilles heel, the only thing that could upset me is knowing that I'm right about something and I miss my trade because I didn't hold it because of what everyone else is comfortable with. That's what's gonna irk me. But other people's irk might come from, like I said, I've held trades 3 weeks and maybe that trade ended up a loss after 3 weeks. That's probably their Achilles heel of they've lost so much they want to take the profit. But it's like it comes to a point of it's not me trying to understand people. They have to understand me because my way is profitable. Or at least take what I'm saying and be able to implement what I'm saying into their personality trait, but they still have to follow those same rules. But because I've grown, like just like I always say my mom is schizophrenic. I grew up at like 6, 7, 8 years old. I remember my mom back in Louisiana. Like nobody caught her schizophrenia in time, so that's what I grew up through. So there's different a set of trials and tribulations with that too. I don't know. People think I'm not emotional. I'm actually very fucking emotional. You know what I'm talking about? So it's like loyalty and shit that's really strong to me. So it's like people got to understand where I'm coming from with that. So it's bigger than just trading. So losses in the market is nothing more than lows in life. If I lost my job and lost everything, there's nothing more than me blowing an account in the market. But in the market, I got way more control over that because if I understand the rules of an uptrend and I understand the rules of a downtrend, I have a set of rules to follow. And the only way I'm going to fail is if the market starts manipulating, which manipulation is nothing more than the market rules not being followed. So you still only got two sets of rules, right? And then if I don't follow them, like if I get scary and change something out, like if I'm selling low, so like that 4 hour chart I keep sharing with crypto, that 4 hour was crazy. I don't know how we survived that dive. It was dumb. I was just like, are you
We still
serious?
survived.
Are
We
you
still alive.
but yeah, we
We
still
still alive.
alive. That's because I make sure to follow the rules. If I didn't follow the rules of buying at a low point every time, that the cat would have been blown. Every time this market come down, following the rules, because every single low, no matter if it's an uptrend or a downtrend, it has to hold and give you a buy. Because if I buy high, I'm not surprised by the loss. If I buy low and the market drop out like it did on Sunday at market open, then I'm surprised. I was surprised. I closed my computer. I don't know about everybody else. I started getting in drawdown. I started doing fucking chores. I started washing dishes. I'm good for washing dishes. I swear to God, I talk about washing dishes every day. Because if I'm in drawdown, I just start washing dishes. I'll start mopping the floor. This bitch gonna be clean by the time I get out of drawdown. And I don't know why, but I do that shit when I'm mad too. My ex used to live here, they nigga piss me off. And I'll start washing fucking dishes. And that's just where I'm at.
Yeah.
But that's my go-to. That's my habit. But I got habits in the market too. When I know that the rules of an uptrend is higher highs